Hey YouTube, I'm Ali, welcome to the channel. In today's episode, I'm going to be taking all of these components and fitting them into this case. Now, unfortunately, work for me means spending a lot of time away from home, a lot of time in hotels. Now, to get my gaming fix, so far, I've been using this, a razor blade. This is the 2016 version, so it's getting on a bit. But truthfully, nothing beats that experience of playing on a desktop PC with a mechanical keyboard, a mouse, and a separate screen. What I'm attempting to do in this video is build myself something that is using newer components that can be air-cooled and still remain fairly quiet, but then can fit into something small enough for me to take with me whenever I go traveling. What follows is a series of build videos, sped up so I don't bore you all, with a little bit of commentary from me, just describing exactly what went on as I went through each stage. At the end, I'll give you a quick summary of what I thought of the whole process and what I thought of this particular case, the LAN case, the one I've chosen to build in. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the experience as much as I do. Now, I haven't built a PC for a little while, so the first thing I did was take some precautions and put down an anti-static mat, get myself a little screwdriver and a tin to hold all my screws. Here you can see me taking out the motherboard. It's a little micro ITX board, well wrapped up, but this thing had everything I wanted on it. The next thing was just to release and attach the CPU, which you can see me doing here. I'm getting my fingers all over it, but later on you'll see me wipe down the CPU with some isopropanol alcohol. I'll point that out in a minute. This was pretty straightforward and simple to do. Just line the dots up and away you go. Because I'm using a specific small form factor cooler, I had to remove the supports for the standard cooler, which you can see me doing here. In preparation for adding my my little mini slimline cooler. There we go. That's the isopropanol being used to wipe down the chip. Now I got some thermal paste that I'm applying here. I spent a long time applying that, which is silly really, and it looks terrible. But there we go. Here's the Noctua fan. Now if you're eagle-eyed, you'll notice that there's already a memory card attached to the bottom of this motherboard. This motherboard can take 2 memory cards, and stupidly, I decided to put the memory card in first, but I put this into the second slot. This is not where I'm going to have this memory card. Anyway, I put the backing plate on for the slimline cooler. There's the cooler all attached. Now, here I am correcting my mistake. I'm removing the M.2. That's the second slot for it. Just tidying that up very quick. And then I'll show you exactly where it should go. It should go here. And the reason it should go here is because this thing here is a little heat sink. It's got its own fan. And I'm about to attach it. Here we go. So that's the M.2 going in there. That's 2 terabytes, which is more than enough, I think. This was a little bit fiddly, but not too difficult. It tends to spring up, so I was just holding it down there. Tighten it up. Apply the heatsink back on. The heatsink's got a little fan on it as well. And I was able to just screw that down. There we go. Done and done. Okay, now onto memory. Now everything's been pretty black and pretty somber looking, but I wanted to go all out bling with my memory there. So I've gone for some G.Skill Trident Royal, and that's 32 gig of 3200 DDR4. This is RGB, so it glows like crazy, and you'll see that at the end result. Easy to attach, slot straight in. Right, this is the first time we actually get to see the case. Well, some of the case anyway. Here I'm just prepping. I've removed all the screws and I'm just taking the sides off. That side there is where the motherboard goes. The other side was for the GPU. So I'm just taking out the bits and pieces. I'm going to do like a test fit just to make sure everything sits correctly. Also, I want to see how much space there is at the bottom for my case fan. Now those ribbon cables there, I had to be really careful bending. They were okay to move around, but I didn't want to bend them too close to where they were soldered onto the actual board. Okay, onto the case fan. Here's the case fan. These were great. This particular set allowed me to change the color of the corners. Again, I wasn't going to show this up. It's not going to be visible in the case, so I just used black. They're slightly spongy in texture, and I think they're used to help dampen any vibration and any noise. So there's me just attaching all four on both sides. Little rubber sort of feet, in effect. You're literally looking at me putting black on black here. So you can't quite see it. There we go. All right, great, wonderful. And there's me spinning it around to see that it works. Hooray! Okay, one last one. There we go, done. Now, that now needs to go into the case. So here we are back in the case. And there's me gently coaxing it in. Now, this is what I meant by being really careful. I had to actually kind of slightly stretch and pull the ribbons to get that fan in, but you can just see it there at the bottom of my screen. It's on and it's in. I'm going to turn the whole thing upside down in a second and just screw that in. Any second now. There we go. Now, to keep the case fan active, allow it to freely move, I had to pull these ribbons back a little, and I'm using a bit of Gorilla Tape here, or duct tape really, just to hold the ribbon in place and to stop it moving. It also meant that it was, so as well as being clear from the case fan, it also meant that it was not going to be springing up and touching the motherboard in any way. So there we go, there's that. Tidying up the cables a bit. And now I'm going to add in the main motherboard, which was pretty straightforward to do. A little bit of movement there with the wires, but pretty straightforward. Once the motherboard was in, it was time to put in my little power supply. This was amazing, actually, for the size. Very small, very compact, and I've had it running, obviously, since, and it's absolutely silent. It's got this fan stop capability, so when it's quiet and not very hot, the fan actually doesn't move at all. Now, once all the main components were in, the rest of the task was really just putting cables together. So that's what you're seeing me do here. I'm making sure all these cables attach and move. I'll do the tidying up later. When I say attach and move, I mean I want to make sure that they all attach and reach. And this is where it all went pear-shaped, because as I was putting the GPU in that I had proudly bought, I realised that it was actually 2 and a bit slots big. Only slightly bigger than it needed to be, but big enough so that it wouldn't actually fit into the case and close. Thankfully, though, I was able to order another graphics card, one that did fit, an EVGA one, 2070 still. And I was able to reshoot that last scene, this time throwing caution to the wind with my anti-static sheet and just going straight in. And you should see that this time, there we go, it fits in comfortably with enough space to be able to put the cover on. Now, just before I did commit to the cover, I thought I'd do a quick electric check. Whoa, that's a lot of RGB. So that's me just plugging it in, switching it on and making sure everything looked like it was working. Which it did, which was great. So now all that follows is me just tidying up those cables, putting on the case. Quick look at my watch for some reason there. There we go. This was really all about cable ties, making sure the screw heads were sunk in properly and not damaged. Yeah. Well, folks, this is it. This is the end result. It's small. Oh my God, is it small? It's very robust, and I think it's turned out pretty good. I haven't screwed in the side panels. They actually pop out, and I've done that so I can take this off and just show you what the inside looks like. I've got the thing switched on here, the machine switched on here. There's random RGB going on there. So there's a motherboard which is orange in color. There's the crucial memory, which is doing a rainbow thing, and you can't quite see it, but there's also the RGB blue of the graphics card on this side. Now, just to give you size comparison, here's a can of Coke, or an empty can of Coke, consumed while building, in fact. And because the internet demands it, here is a small banana. Yeah, there we go. Banana for comparison. I'll try to leave that there without damaging everything. Can I do that? No, I can't. Anyway, there's a banana. So, like I said, the actual experience of building it was quite fun. The case is very accessible. There were a lot of screws that you could undo to move things around. They were standard Phillips screws. I had to be a little bit careful not to damage the screw threads and the heads in the top, just to make sure they looked okay, because they are visible from the top. But in general, it was a pretty good build. I'm going to turn this thing off and I'm just going to talk about the negatives, because there are a couple and some of them are really bugging me. So I've switched the machine off and taken away the leads and the banana and the can of Coke. And I've done that so I can just chat to you about the negatives of this build. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about the back, or the rear exhaust. And I don't know if you can see it, but my motherboard comes in a particular orientation. The writing on the back there comes in a particular orientation, and it's the wrong way round. So for me, that now appears upside down. It's not a major thing, but it does bother me. And again, I suppose it's something down to the motherboard rather than the case. I could have been able to choose a different motherboard had I known that, but I guess what I really would like to have seen, and I'm asking a lot, was it would have been great if I was able to change the orientation of what is up and what is down on this case, which is something I couldn't do. Anyway, that's one thing. The second thing is that a lot of motherboards, when they meet the case, they'll usually have like a foam seal around them. So you'll have a foam seal that goes all the way around and blocks out any light or any air, basically. That's missing. So if you look very carefully, and you probably won't be able to see it from where you are, but I might take a picture and just show you up close. There's a gap here where the motherboard fits in the case. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it does bother me. In a case that costs that much, not to have something like that kind of annoys me. There's a couple of other bits and pieces. One is that screw heads are visible at the top. It does mean that when you're undoing the thing, you've got to be extra careful to make sure you don't damage them. It was hard to damage them because they are quite well-made screws, but still. And the other thing that really annoyed me is, there's two other things that annoyed me. One is these feet at the bottom, they mark surfaces. So when I put this down here, this is like a melamine kind of top, but if I move it around, it skids and leaves a black mark, which I don't like at all. And the final thing that kind of bothered me was that the front USB cable here ends in the very, very new, I think it's called a key class A or a key A ending. That connection doesn't exist for my motherboard, and I couldn't find an adapter either. So basically, I can't use that connection. Again, it goes to the point that you've got to be super careful when you choose the components to fit in here. It isn't just about what fits in here in the dimensions. It's about what actually works with what you get in the case. So a couple of negatives there. Are they enough to spoil the overall experience? No, I don't think so. I think on the whole, I'm really happy with this. Now, I've had this thing running for a little while. I did some benchmarking using the superposition, and with the tiniest bit of tweaking, this thing gave me a score of just under 20,000, which is awesome, and it was barely audible as well, so that's really, really pleasing. I wanted something small, compact, lightweight that I could take to LANs, that I could take to hotels when I travel, and I think I've got it. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. It's something new for the channel, but it is something I'm very passionate about. As well as board games and tabletop games, video game playing is something I'm really, really keen on, and I'm quite keen to share that with you guys on this channel too. This build has been fun. I've said it a couple of times now, so damn it, I mean it. If you've enjoyed what I've done here, consider subscribing to the channel, or at the very least give me a like if you enjoyed this particular video. But until next time, guys, take care.